She was a queen, a wife, a mother, but most of all a woman whose name has become synonymous with wickedness, idolatry, and corruption. Jezebel, the infamous queen of Israel, left behind a legacy that shaped biblical history, earning her a place among the most notorious figures in Scripture. But who was the real Jezebel? Was she merely an evil queen, or was there more to her story? How did she rise to power? Why was she so hated? And what ultimately led to her dramatic downfall? Before she became the queen of Israel, Jezebel was a princess. She was the daughter of Ethbaal, the king of Sidon, a powerful Phoenician city known for its wealth, trade, and devotion to the god Baal. Sidon and the Phoenician Empire were deeply rooted in pagan worship, and as the daughter of a king, Jezebel was raised in the traditions of Baal and Asherah. She was not just any princess, she was a priestess, deeply committed to her faith. When she married Ahab, the king of Israel, it was not just a political alliance, it was a cultural and religious collision. Israel, despite its struggles with faithfulness, was meant to worship Yahweh, the one true God. But Jezebel had no intention of abandoning her gods. Instead, she sought to convert Israel to Baal worship. Jezebel's husband, King Ahab, was one of the most infamous rulers of Israel. The Bible describes him as doing more evil in the sight of the Lord than all who were before him. Ahab was a capable military leader, but he was spiritually weak. Instead of leading Israel in righteousness, he was easily swayed by Jezebel's influence. She was not a passive queen. She was a force of dominance, manipulation, and control. Jezebel convinced Ahab to establish Baal worship as the official religion of Israel, build a massive temple to Baal in Samaria, Israel's capital, appoint hundreds of Baal and Asherah prophets in Israel, persecute and kill the prophets of Yahweh, silencing those who opposed her. This was the greatest spiritual crisis in Israel's history. Never before had the nation faced such a direct assault on its faith. Jezebel was not just promoting Baal worship, she was waging war against Yahweh. Jezebel's dominance over Israel seemed unstoppable, until a prophet named Elijah emerged to challenge her reign. Elijah, a fearless prophet of God, confronted Ahab and declared that because of Israel's idolatry, there would be no rain for years. A devastating drought and famine followed, crippling the land and proving that Baal, the so-called storm god, had no power. The ultimate showdown came at Mount Carmel, where Elijah challenged Jezebel's 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah to a test. Each side would prepare a sacrifice. They would call on their respective gods to send fire from heaven. The true God would answer. For hours, Baal's prophets cried out, danced, and cut themselves, but there was no response. Then Elijah stepped forward. He prayed, and immediately fire fell from heaven, consuming the sacrifice, the altar, and even the water around it. The people of Israel fell to their knees, declaring, "The Lord, He is God." Elijah then ordered the execution of Baal's prophets, delivering a crushing blow to Jezebel's religious system, but Jezebel was not intimidated. When she heard what Elijah had done, she vowed to kill him, forcing the prophet to flee for his life. Jezebel was powerful, but her downfall had already begun. Jezebel's most notorious act of cruelty was her murder of Naboth, an innocent man who owned a vineyard near the royal palace. Ahab wanted Naboth's vineyard for himself, but Naboth refused to sell it, saying, "The Lord forbid that I should give you my ancestral inheritance." Ahab sulked in frustration, but Jezebel had no patience for weakness. She devised a wicked plan. She forged letters in Ahab's name, ordering the elders of Naboth's city to falsely accuse him of blasphemy. Naboth was dragged before the people and falsely convicted of treason. He was stoned to death, and Ahab seized his vineyard. Jezebel's absolute disregard for justice outraged God. It was this crime that sealed her fate of destruction. After Naboth's murder, Elijah confronted Ahab with a chilling prophecy. Ahab's dynasty would be wiped out. Jezebel's body would be eaten by dogs in Jezreel. Despite this warning, Jezebel remained defiant. Even when Ahab repented for his sins, Jezebel showed no remorse. She believed herself untouchable. A few years later, Ahab died in battle, fulfilling Elijah's prophecy. His son, Joram, ruled after him, but the dynasty was already crumbling. Then came Jehu, a fierce warrior chosen by God to destroy Ahab's lineage. Jehu led a military coup, killing Joram and riding toward Jezebel's palace in Jezreel. In one of the most dramatic moments in biblical history, Jezebel, knowing her end was near, painted her face, did her hair, and stood at the palace window. As Jehu arrived, she mocked him, saying, "Have you come in peace, O Zimri, murderer of your master?" But Jehu was unmoved. He looked up at Jezebel's attendants and commanded, "Who is on my side? Throw her down." Without hesitation, her own servants pushed her from the window. Jezebel's body hit the ground, and Jehu's chariot trampled over her. Later, when men went to bury her, they found that dogs had eaten her flesh, fulfilling Elijah's prophecy. Jezebel's story did not end with her death. Her name became a symbol of corruption, immorality, and idolatry. In the book of Revelation, Jesus himself warned the church in Thyatira about a Jezebel who led believers into sin. Her influence, though ancient, remained a cautionary tale for all generations. Jezebel wasn't just a wicked queen, she was a force of spiritual rebellion against God. The real Jezebel was more than a villain. She was a powerful woman who refused to submit to God. Her story is one of ambition, power, and ultimately, divine justice. But her life is also a warning. No one is beyond the reach of God's judgment. No matter how powerful a person may seem, God always has the final word. For more Bible content, remember to subscribe, like and turn on your notification bell.